Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Another coronavirus mutation has been found in the United States. This one comes from South Africa, and experts warn it could lead to a spike in new cases.
This variation of the virus was discovered in 2 people in South Carolina, and not only is it more contagious, it may also be harder to find out if someone has it. Eric Phillips has the story.
The 2 cases identified in South Carolina involve people who live in different parts of the state, do not appear to be connected, and have not traveled recently. Health officials are concerned about the South African variant because the COVID vaccines currently on the market may not be as effective against it. Top health officials are speaking in blunt terms about fears over this mutation of the virus.
Well, the one in South Africa, George, troubles me.
My biggest fear at this moment is that these variants are going to take hold and really take off across the United States. And if that happens, we're going to see a huge spike in cases, lots of infections, lots of deaths.
Officials say the strain has the dangerous combination of being more contagious than the original virus and less responsive to current vaccines. What's more, there are signs that some virus mutations may elude COVID tests, now being used widely, and may be less susceptible to antibody treatment. Scientists are acting quickly in case a booster shot becomes necessary for Americans.
We're going ahead already now and trying to stay a step or 2 ahead of things by making vaccines along the same type that we made for the ones we're giving now, but having it be directed specifically against the isolate that's in South Africa.
In addition to the South African isolate, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has reported at least 315 cases of the UK-discovered variant in the United States. Those reports have come from at least 28 states, and health officials believe it could become the dominant strain in the U.S. by March. Also, health officials in Minnesota reported finding the Brazilian variant of the virus earlier this week. Health officials also worry that if the virus changes enough, people might get COVID-19 a second time. This, as January is the deadliest month on record for the pandemic.
It's still a very serious situation. Now's the time to double down.
Doubling down means being sure to follow the standard safety precautions, wearing masks, social distancing, washing hands, and getting the vaccine as soon as you can, which may not be easy with demand far outweighing supply. The Biden administration working to get millions of more doses in the system and expand distribution centers across the country, beefing up the numbers of medical workers who can administer the shots. Still, with all that, there's a stark reality.
It will be months before everyone who wants a vaccine will be able to get one.
The White House is predicting some 90,000 Americans will die next month alone because of the virus. The CDC is recommending that Americans avoid travel. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Well, our CBN News medical reporter Lori Johnson is with us now. And Lori, it just seems like the hits keep on coming. We don't know how the South African variation got into the country, and as a result, are there probably more cases of it than we know?
Health experts say it's almost a sure thing, Gordon, because there is so very little genomic surveillance in the United States. Only 0.5% of COVID cases are actually looked at under a microscope and sequenced genetically. That's how we find the mutations.
Well, we've seen 3 different mutations from 3 different continents. Could there be more to come that are even worse?
Well, we know that mutations are very common with this virus and all viruses, and there have been thousands, but these 3 are the ones that have been particularly concerning to health experts. And so there's every reason to think that if this virus continues to spread, there will definitely be more mutations. Will they be more serious than this is unknown. But as we've talked about so many times before, Gordon, the way viruses mutate is when they are spread. So for people who aren't really very concerned about getting the virus, we know that 99% of people who get it survive and aren't really that concerned about giving it to other people who are relatively young and healthy. They need to keep in mind the fact that as we spread it, these mutations are going to continue.
I have to go back to the CDC report from last March, which actually predicted this. It predicted that there would be waves of contagion followed by mutations, and we would have a tough time staying ahead of it. and they were talking about a 2-year process, which would take us all the way to March 2022. Is that what we're seeing unfold?
Well, the health experts aren't really looking very far into the future because everything keeps changing until these variants, particularly the South African variant, came on the scene so recently. Things were looking better. The cases were down. It looked like we were getting on the other side of the holiday surge. And then now the vaccines are on the scene, very effective. And then the South African variant really is a stumbling block to progress. So it's difficult to see, you know, a year or two down the road what's going to happen. So right now, health officials are just trying to do the best they can to stay ahead of it. And as far as the rest of us, what we can individually do is try not to get it. And we know about all these mitigation efforts. Knowing them and doing them are two different things. And then try to get that vaccine as soon as you can.
Well, talk to us about mRNA. I hear that it's can potentially be a cut and paste, that as new variants and new mutations come, you can cut and paste and then get an effective vaccine against the mutation. Tell us what it is and how does it work and how it can bring us hope.
That's right. It is sort of the cut and paste technology. It basically takes a portion of genetic material from the virus and codes our cells to produce a protein that our immune system reacts to and then produces antibodies. So when the virus changes, when it mutates, we can just take that new genetic code and reprogram, if you will, the virus and so it's reprogram the vaccine, I should say. And so compared to the development of other types of vaccines, the mRNA ones are relatively less expensive and faster to tweak, to sort of amend to fit some of these new variants that come on the scene. Having said that, Moderna is in the process of now adapting their vaccine to the South African variant, but it's not going to be until fall until that new vaccine is ready to put into people's arms, because remember, it does have to be tested and manufactured. All takes time.
Okay, so it could mutate again by the fall. So are we going to be continually playing catch up? I mean, I keep going back to the common cold, that we haven't developed a vaccine for the common cold because it mutates so quickly. Are we going to look at that with COVID?
Well, experts really don't. This is all brand new. And so the health experts, when you ask them what's on the future and what's going to happen in the future, they don't know, because this is a brand new virus. No one ever really saw it up until about a year ago. And so they're just really trying to keep up with what's happening so far. But certainly those are definite possibilities, what you just suggested.
All right. Well, more happy news as we all want to go back to normal. Lori, thank you, and thank you for the insight. If you want to get the latest on the various vaccines, the Moderna, the Pfizer vaccine are the ones using that mRNA technology, just go to the CBN News app and you can find the latest from Lori Johnson and stay informed so you can stay healthy. Well, with a new administration in the White House, work on the southern border wall has come to a halt, and that could lead to a potentially serious problem. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. CBN News has learned that the end of that work has meant leaving a literal gap that could have been closed. Chuck Holton reports from where the work stopped and what it could mean for the issue of illegal immigration.
Wednesday, the 27th of January, 2021 is the last day of construction on Trump's border wall. He's completed over 450 miles of this 30-foot tall, no-climb fence in strategic areas all around the southern border. But right here in New Mexico, it stops and we have an open border with just anti-vehicle barrier. And the problem here is that the wall stops there, there's a big gap, and it picks up on the other side. This gap now becomes a funnel for anybody who wants to enter the United States illegally. That's unfortunate because this problem could easily be remedied. The steel bollards needed to fill this gap are already bought and paid for, stacked nearby and ready to be installed. But Biden's order to halt construction means these fence panels may never get installed, and one construction worker told us he believes they will simply be abandoned, left in the desert to rust away. CBN News reached out to one of the largest contractors that was working on this project, and we're told the stop work order will immediately cost over 5,000 construction jobs while the government tries to decide how to proceed. These contracts have already been awarded, so it may actually cost more for the Biden administration to halt construction than it would to simply allow these panels to be put to use. CBN also asked the Army Corps of Engineers for comment, but has yet to receive a reply. But that's not all. A few miles away, this construction yard holds more than 3,000 already completed wall panels, which works out to more than 6.5 miles of fence that could be stopping drug smugglers and human traffickers from entering this country. Instead, it's likely these hundreds of tons of purpose-built steel will never be put to use, at least not under a Biden administration. From Columbus, New Mexico, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Thanks, Chuck. And CBN News reached out to Customs and Border Patrol, who said CBP, in coordination with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, has suspended wall construction projects except for activities that are safety-related. All projects are in compliance with the president's proclamation. Well, President Biden, as expected, signed an executive order Thursday reversing a regulation that forbade U.S. tax dollars from being used to perform and promote abortions and related services internationally. Pro-life advocates quickly criticized that decision.
For the administration to want to be a champion of abortion is extremely disappointing, and it's really out of step with what the American people want.
77% of Americans overall oppose U.S. funding to support abortion in other countries, according to a new Marist poll. Well, the White House is defending President Biden's heavy use of executive orders in his first few days in office, a move which is drawing growing scrutiny and leading to criticism from Republicans. He's issued 22 in his first week compared to 4 from President Trump, 5 by President Obama, and none at all from President George W. Bush. Even the New York Times editorial board wrote this week, "Ease up on the executive actions, Joe," saying this is no way to make law. Undoing some of Mr. Trump's excesses is necessary, but Mr. Biden's legacy will depend on his ability to hammer out agreements with Congress. Gordon, back to you.
Well, the honeymoon is over. Usually new presidents get a honeymoon period, but for the New York Times, who absolutely was campaigning against President Trump, to now say, "Ease up, Joe." You've got a new variation of the COVID virus. You now have the news media turning. You have all of this turmoil in the country. We're still seeing rioting in Portland. We're still seeing turmoil literally in every city. The honeymoon's over, and it's one of the shortest ones I've ever experienced. And now more than ever, we need to pray for our country. We shouldn't say, well, you know, the Democrats are getting a taste of their own medicine. No, that's not what's going to lead us out of our problems, whether politically or economically or with our health care. It's not going to get us anywhere. We have to unify. We have to come together. We're calling people to pray for the country, and you can join in that prayer. It's real simple. Just give us a call and say, I want to help pray for America. We also have a website, prayforamerica.com. You can text the word pray to 71777. Just agree with us in prayer that we need God and we need him now.